is an inevitable part of life. For some, it happens naturally and painlessly. For others, it comes out of nowhere. Then you have these special folks, the ones that lack any sort of common sense, and for them, death comes with a Darwin Award. This video contains 10 of those people, from a man with a fiery rage to another man with an insatiable habit. So, without further ado, let's meet some Darwins. Number 1. The Case of the Charred Crook. In Croatia, stupid rides to a new level when a criminal in a padded penitentiary decided to whip out his contraband lighter. Bohan was a petty criminal who spent much of his life in prisons. A small-time crook with a criminal record as extensive as the literary works of Tolstoy. Bohan's career was marked by persistence rather than success. For example, death letters persistently sent to his ex-girlfriend landed the criminal mastermind to serve an 8-month sentence, adding to a cumulative 5 years already spent in prison. During his last incarceration, Bohan's behavior was so outstanding that fateful Monday, the prison guards had to resort to locking him in a padded cell. Little did they suspect the cool-down time would leave him literally more hot-headed than before. The brilliant prisoner had managed to smuggle a lighter into the rubber room. Both hands were behind his back, but that didn't prevent our persistent prisoner from retrieving a lighter and flicking his bick. Captured on video at 3:35 p.m., Bohan strikes the lighter and purposely starts a fire near the door. The video, tactfully edited, shows the euphoria of the moment as the rubber wall begins to blaze. As he nonchalantly swaggers around his tomb, the fires grow faster. Suddenly, panic sets in as Bohan realizes that suffocation is imminent. What a surprise! The prison guards were really not expecting the cell to burst into flames, and why would they? They noticed the smoky situation a bit too late to save the prisoner from himself, making the Case of the Charred Crook the first prisoner death in the history of the country. At 25 years of age, the only excellence Bohan displayed was in the manner of his demise. We recognize his outstanding efforts with the VIP Darwin Winner membership. Number 2. Full Metal Idiot. Two brothers-in-law were united by a common interest that is shared by a small but regrettably significant portion of the population: collecting war weapons. By the date of their deaths, they had collected over 100 frag grenades, some bazookas, fuse materials, and ammunition from the forests of Lapland. The men enjoyed collecting the weapons as trophies, yet neither of them had the training on handling and disposing of explosives. We can all see where this is going to end. Around 6 p.m. on a Friday night, the 24 and 27-year-old men were both in the garage with their antique weapon collection. The older man had finished defusing a grenade and was carefully removing the payload. The object of his attention was not a small hand grenade, but a rather large 75mm anti-tank grenade. It was 17 inches, or 42 centimeters long. Ironically, the attempt to render it harmless resulted in the opposite outcome. In the northern town of Kemi, Finland, the piece of the garage was shattered by a small explosion. The man holding the grenade died in the ambulance, and the other survived with serious injuries. In the aftermath of the explosion, 200 people within a 150-meter perimeter surrounding the garage evacuated to a school, and then dozens of kilograms of explosives were safely removed by the police department. Evacuees returned to their homes with a new gratitude for their lives. If more war weapons had been set off in a chain reaction, there would have been victims and damaged buildings up to 300 meters away from the garage. Thankfully, it was not a full detonation. Rather than explode, the old explosive material combusted and burned. Since no bystanders were injured, this is a wonderfully apt inductee for the Darwin Club, plus an honorable mention / future Darwin winner. How does that old saying go again? Oh yeah. In Finland, you do not disassemble bomb. Bomb disassemble you. And if you think that explosion was crazy stupid, wait until you hear about the boom that happens in number 8. 2 words for you. Stupid. Number 3, resurrection failed. For 5 years, a popular Sufi had been performing miracles for villagers in Mubarakabad. He finally had reached the point where he was ready to increase the stakes. It was time for a full-blown resurrection. But he was not interested in reviving any old corpse. This novice naturally preferred to breathe life back into fresh meat. So, the Sufi put the word out to his followers that he wanted to kill and revive a faithful man, a married man. The Sufi really wanted someone who had reasons to come back, a person with no desire to manger in death. And in the grip of an overwhelmingly obvious Darwin moment, 40-year-old Muhammad Niaz stepped up and volunteered to be murdered the very next day. Lest anyone claim that Muhammad was mentally ill, which would disqualify him from a Darwin Award, please remember that resurrections by saints is an idea that is popular in Christianity as well, and Catholic saints have been recorded as performing the miracle of raising the dead. So no, he was not mentally ill, just mentally dull. On Tuesday, the idea was announced. On Wednesday, the follower was killed of his own will. And on Thursday, the overly optimistic Sufi was behind bars for murder. Generally, no Darwin Awards were given for murder, but in this case, the man volunteered for the scheme and received his just reward, a Darwin Award. Number 4, mock death. We go from a man giving himself up for murder to a man accidentally murdering himself. This time for money rather than religion. On November 1st, 2009, in Belgium, police received a desperate phone call from a man who had been attacked in a motorway. When the police arrived, they found Thierry B., 37, lying dead on the ground. His body had been stabbed, his car burning. Witnesses had seen a big truck driving away, but there was no evidence of fighting or struggling around the body. Only the knife wounds in his shoulder and neck. Puzzled, inspectors analyzed Thierry's cell phone calls. He had recently reconnected with an old friend, a fact that intrigued Inspector Commissioner Lamarck. Childhood friends, lost sight for 10 years, back in touch. The commissioner asked the 42-year-old friend for a chat about the roadside aggression. Turns out, the dead man was aggrieved regarding insurance money that he felt he was owed. But he was never paid, after his restaurant burned 2 years prior. He had asked his old friend to bring him a knife and a jerry can full of fuel, then leave him alone in the motorway. A man with a plan to get the insurance money one way or the other. The victim then set his car on fire, called the police, and stabbed himself, accidentally cutting an artery in his own neck. By the time his simulated act of violence was over, he was over too. Face against the ground, 10 yards from his burning car, and roll the credits on this little drama. Sheesh! Number 5, Banana Bandito. A banana plantation was the setting for a Friday evening robbery in Limon, Costa Rica. Villegas, 30, lived, note the past tense, in the same building as the farm's cafeteria, well, before his fatal slip-up. He was in the process of breaking into the cafeteria via the roof when a security guard heard suspicious noises and fired his 12-gauge shotgun towards the rustling sounds. A shotgun fires shells that contain several small, round projectiles called shot. 12-gauge shotguns, such as those used by the banana security, are large weapons, likely to be loaded with buckshot rather than birdshot, and buckshot can kill or seriously damage a human body. However, the intruders were not immobilized, and the warning shot was answered with return fire. This caused the security guard to take refuge behind a wall and fire again. Then, thud. Someone hit the ground. Then another shot from the bandito. All this commotion on the roof of the Banana Farm Cafe seems outlandish to me. But I suppose bananas are big business in Limon. When the dust cleared, 2 robbers were still standing, and another robber was discovered lying dead 200 yards away. That man was Villegas. The big surprise came when they turned Villegas over and realized the fatal wound, a shot to his buttocks, was caused by his own homemade weapon. What an asshole. So you see, troop members, crime pays, and DIY guns also pay, in spades. Number 6, Fool's Gold. Bachelor lottery agent Pravin Cuse from India lived with his brother's family by choice. You see, he had his own house, an abandoned 100-year-old building, and it was only located a few meters away. As we all should know, legends hold that a pot of gold lies buried at the end of the rainbow. But Pravin learned in a dream that an ancient pot of gold was actually buried beneath his house. How convenient for him. He obviously decided to follow his dream and dig for that gold. He kept his plans private. That way, he could claim the fortune all to himself instead of fighting with his brother over it. This dream told him to dig directly beneath the staircase. So, after lunch, every day, without fail, Pravin would take his spade and dig a little deeper beneath the stairs. The neighbors had absolutely no idea that days and nights of digging had resulted in a 15-foot deep tunnel. The innovative gold digger had even rigged a remote control toy car to carry a flashlight to assist him in the dark. He was smart enough to control his lighting needs, but not smart enough to take into account the water table. One day, the 32-year-old lottery agent did not return home. Well, to his brother's home where he was sleeping. And his worried relatives lodged a missing persons report. Police discovered that the floor of the old house had caved in. The soil beneath the staircase became wet at a depth of 15 feet due to its proximity to the sea, and the unsupported walls of the tunnel had collapsed. A few hours later, an earth mover had excavated Pravin's body from the debris, along with a spade and the innovative mobile flashlight. The lottery agent's number was finally up, and no, they never found his pot of gold while they were recovering his body. It really must have been very deep. Number 7. Wascally Wabbit. Snowmobiles and alcohol are a dangerous mix. Then came the rabbit. After a day spent partying and racing snowmobiles in the wilderness, a group of snowmobilers were headed back to their cabin when up popped a jackrabbit. They gave chase. Several collisions were narrowly averted, and so the snowmobilers backed off, except for one. This snowmobiler kept his eyes on the prize and rapidly closed in. The rabbit darted aside to save itself. The snowmobiler closed in again. The rabbit ran toward the road where there was less snow. Trying to reach the rabbit before it crossed the road, that's when the man accelerated to Mach 1. Well, this rabbit had other ideas. It knew the lay of the land better and was smaller and able to hide. The rabbit darted under a culvert beneath the road. Witnesses stated that the snowmobiler never even braked. There was a metallic crunch as the accelerating vehicle rammed into the culvert, followed by a blast that shattered the snowmobile into 1,000 bits. This brand of snowmobile unfortunately had its fuel tank mounted in the front. The culvert admitted the tip of the snowmobile, then cut into the cowling, spilling fuel over the hot engine. The body of the snowmobiler was blown 20 feet back into the field. The rabbit's whereabouts are unknown. Number 8. Muffled explosion. An embarrassed and seriously injured 17-year-old initially claimed that an explosive had been planted in his backpack by an unknown person. However, police investigators soon extracted the truth from the reckless teen. The young man had found an M80 explosive at his grandmother's house, so he took it home to examine it and began to repeatedly light and extinguish the fuse. What? Your grandparents don't have M80s lying around? Yeah, mine either. Well, during one of these cycles of lighting and dousing the fuse, it wouldn't go out. So he jammed the red cardboard tube in the best of hiding spots, between his thighs. Then he covered it with his hand to muffle the explosion. Let's just say his plan was way less successful than he had hoped. Commonly thought to be a stick of grenade, M80s, according to PyroUniverse.com, actually contain flash powder rather than TNT. They were used by the US military to simulate grenade explosions, and thanks to the Child Protection Act of 1966, they were outlawed. Bummer. They are just not safe to be detonated by the average man in the street, let alone a Darwin winner. One very loud kaboom later, our junior pyrotechnic specialist had lost his right hand, his right leg, and his right to reproduce, earning him a rare, living Darwin Award. As always, my regrets to this young man and mostly his family, and also, welcome to the Darwin Club, my friend! Number 9. Going to seed. Darren was dumb, even for a junkie. But what he lacked for in IQ, he made up for in creativity. While in the supermarket one day, Darren noticed a bag labeled birdseed, 100% poppy seed. He seized his chance to circumvent the stranglehold of the international drug cartels with the following logic. 100% poppy seed equals 100% opium. Figuring he was onto something good, he bought a bag of birdseed, boiled it into a thick paste, and proceeded to inject that paste into his arm. Nothing happened. Maybe he needed some more. Round 2. Inject. An hour later, Darren was brought unconscious to the emergency department, as sick as it's possible to be. His chest x-ray showed thousands of tiny seed-like objects scattered throughout his lung fields. The working diagnosis was miliary tuberculosis, so called because the TB deposits resemble millet seeds. Little did they know. Only 2 weeks later, shortly after his passing, did the autopsies reveal the true story. Number 10. Caught in the auger. An ice maker may seem innocuous, but when it's big enough to walk into, for example one that supplies ice to fishing boats, it can be so dangerous that safety procedures and fail-safe devices are required. So, it was a bit of a surprise when employees at a fish processing plant heard screams emanating from inside the giant ice maker. An employee had been running the machine when flow of ice jammed. Now, access to the machine's auger chamber was restricted. Employees are trained never to enter the chamber while the auger is running. It would be easy enough to ignore the warning signs, but it's hard to get around another safety feature. The auger will not run unless the operator holds down a foot pedal outside the chamber. Take your foot off the pedal and the machine shuts down. There was no way the operator could run the auger and also be in the chamber, or so it seemed. One enterprising employee found a way. Never say never to a future Darwin winner. And he definitely was one. This man laid a heavy piece of metal on the foot pedal to keep the auger running while he entered the chamber to clear an ice jam. He was caught by the swirling auger and drawn inevitably and fatally into the ice machine. Ironically, that employee had helped negotiate a labor contract, stipulating that workers should scrupulously follow all safety procedures and abide by the company's operating rules. How ironic is that? I hope you enjoyed some good old-fashioned Darwin winners. Let me know your favorite in the comments, and why not tap that like button while you're down there? Then, go watch one of these videos that I guarantee will make you laugh. And, as always, stay safe out there. Group TT.